It is Spoilerin time. This is Spoilerin time, and I'm Tom Merritt. With me is Brian Brushwood of the Texas Brushwoods.
Originally the Florida Brushwoods, and before that the English Brushwoodsman.
And
hey
then
man,
of the
look,
deep forest Brushwoods. But we
did I
are
ever
going to
tell you that
spoil some
story?
stuff for you. Right off, Brian, we do need to apologize to people that we're not going to have an Orange is the New Black update this week. We will have one next week. It's our own problem. It's a personal issue, and it's our fault, but we'll get back to it, we promise.
Yeah, okay, so real quick, in place of Orange is the New Black, let's pretend that we watched an amazing other show called Going to Nerdtacular for the past 3 days. I figure, a big part of Spoilerin time is people listening to us tell stories. And I feel like there was a hell of a story to tell at Nerdtacular. Can we talk a little bit about that event?
Sure. You guys tell us what you think. We're gonna do this. We're gonna talk about something that happened in real life on Spoilerin time, and you tell us if you think you like this sort of thing or not. Because it was like a show. It was a reality show.
Oh, yeah. Well, and there was real drama. One of the things they do is they had the Battle of the Frog Pants All-Stars, 4 different teams going up against each other in the Ultimate Geek Trivia Bowl Challenge. And being up on stage, it's the closest thing I've ever experienced in my life to being on a real-life game show. And it was agonizing. And I understand, actually, I said that I didn't know how it turned out because our team got stomped by your team by a margin so big that it just didn't even matter. We got utterly crushed. You guys went into the finals, and how'd you do?
We got utterly crushed. In fact, if it weren't for Craig and his rallying cry, Craig, we might not have scored any points at all. I don't know.
Wait, what did I miss? Everyone in the chat is screaming Craig. What happened?
Craig was our audience member who was on our team. And at some point in our being crushed by Justin Robert Young and friends, we realized that Craig was the only one answering questions correctly on our squad. Our squad was Dills from the Instance, the Double Clicks, myself, and Craig. And so at some point, I decided that we were changing our team name to Craig because he was the only one answering any questions correctly. And people had been yelling Khan for the other team, whose name was the Long Khans. So they started yelling Craig in the same voice.
Oh, my God. That sounds like it was a really fun show for sure.
It was.
Man, okay,
for being crushed, it was a really fun show.
Dude, okay, did you get angry? Because I got angry. It was really frustrating. It was really hard to just get served because in so many ways, when you're in one of these trivia contests, you either get a question you know the answer to, or you get something you've never heard of before. And in some regards, it's a stupid coin toss, and you just have to hope you get served. Like one of the things was there's two actors. One was Don Cheadle. You had to identify Don Cheadle movies, and I knew all of them, every single one, without even thinking about it. I still cannot even tell you the name of the actor that I got, and much less any of the movies he did.
Well, but that's, I will agree that the Don Cheadle versus Dermot Mulroney was definitely seemed a little bit out of whack, but that's going to happen in even more balanced situations where your personal knowledge is going to be great on one thing and not so much on another. And this is the 4th time I've done the Frog Pants All-Stars trivia game, and I still have a brain freeze. When they announced that one of the things was list all the Star Trek movies, yes, I couldn't think of 3 of them. And I know all of them. I could do it right now. I could tell you it's The Motion Picture, The Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock.
All right, Tom, we already established that I can name.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I can easily rattle them off now, but when you're up on that stage, man, all of a sudden it's brain freeze time.
Well, especially because you don't have enough time. They have this great game called Name That, Common Nerd, which is based on Name That Tune, where you go back and forth and you gamble on how many you can name, but you don't have enough time to actually run through the list. You just have to kind of guess how many future you are going to be able to come up with. And so in that regard, that was the one good moment that I was proud of, was when I said I could name 8 of the 11 Star Trek movies that were not named Star Trek. And truthfully, by the time I got to the end, I was like, oh, wait, I know 2 more. But at any rate, it was an amazing good time. The Night Attack show was maybe, and I don't know if I've told you this, Tom, I've had a lot going on lately, and I thought that going to Nerdtacular was going to be an obligation that was going to, weigh down on me and take away attention from all these other things that are super important. Instead, once we did that Night Attack show that you and Veronica guested on, I felt so buoyed. I felt so inflated. I felt so believed in that, like, I left Nerdtacular feeling like I could tackle the world. And it was in every regard maybe the most important thing that happened to me this summer. Like, it gave me the emotional boost to say, like, I could do all of this. I can juggle all these things. And I'm so endlessly thrilled to everyone who showed up, and for you for being on the show. And it seemed like Night Attack was a lot of fun for a lot of folks too.
No, and that's what Nerdtacular is all about. It's the best audience in the world. Diamond Club, Frog Pants Tadpool, all intersecting in one place with really great folks just having a good time, doing the stuff we love to do. And that Night Attack room, you're right. Like, that was magic. So
it was electric. It was lightning in a bottle. It was
not even just because of the people who were in the room, right? Like, T2T2 performed wizardry to allow the thing to be streamed. I still don't know how he did it.
That show was so punk rock. We had our own bootleg of our own show going out through Estonia in order to get out to the masses. It's true pirate radio, Tom.
Yeah, I tip my hat to T2T2, Curly, and everyone in the Diamond Club. Amazing.
Absolutely. All right, hey, let's dive in.
When I say tip my hat, I mean I'm drinking a beer.
Yes.
So let's get to Silicon Valley first of all, because as you may know if you listened to the Cordkillers episode this week, Brian was a little confused. And now I understand my own confusion, because you said a couple things when we talked about the season premiere of Silicon Valley, specifically about flashbacks, that at the time I thought, well, I guess he's just interpreting something a little differently, because I don't remember flashbacks. Now we know why.
Here's the thing is I was partly confused, but that's, to me, is not the interesting part. The interesting part to me is how not confused I was. First of all, I watched the first 15 minutes of the original pilot, where it starts off with, Kid Rock performing for no one. They're at some party and they're agonizing about this, that, or the other. And then I get distracted. Then I decided I was going to watch the show in earnest. So I loaded up HBO Go and said, play for me Silicon Valley. And of course it says, oh, you must want the final episode, which I watched, thinking, well, this is different from what I saw before. Maybe what I saw was teaser footage that will show up at some other moment. But the finale of Silicon Valley is about some guys who come up with a compression technology crazy ahead of the competition. You can watch. In fact, I'm actually going to challenge people. Try watching the finale first. Have the Brian Brushwood experience, okay? Go watch Silicon Valley. Watch the last episode first, in which their backs are up against the wall and a very creative guy comes up with a brand new compression engine light years ahead of the competition. The next episode, you got to click on episode 2, because after all, if you think you just watched the first episode, where else would you go? You would manually click on episode 2. Then you will see this guy who just came up with an advanced compression technology really agonizing because he's got seed funding and trying to figure out how to build his company. And it fits. It totally fits, and it changes nothing.
In other words, Brian, being spoiled on the ending didn't ruin your experience of the show. I say again, as I did on Cordkillers.
All right. First of all, do you really believe that? Do you believe that
I do.
To me, this is an anomaly in that the first episode and the last episode happen to be identical. They're exactly the same thing.
They're not. Have you watched the first episode again?
I haven't watched the end of the first episode. I only saw the beginning.
First episode and the final episode are not identical. I believe that what they're doing is showing the circular nature of events, because what's very different between the first and the last is in the first, he has nothing. He's faced with a dilemma of, should I take the $10 million and not own my idea, or should I take significantly less, $200,000, and own my idea? And he makes an agonizing decision to do that. The final episode is him going the opposite direction, which is like my stuff's going to go out of business. I'm going to lose my funding. I'm not going to have anything left. I will have done all of this for nothing. And he comes up with a genius idea again that saves the day. And it feels like victory because he has won validation of his idea. He's going to continue to get funding. And the point is that Monica makes at the end of the episode, now it's going to get really stressful because now people are going to be giving you venture capital and now you're going to be dragged through the press. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I agonized and threw up at the beginning because of the stress of what I should do. And now that I've won, I'm agonizing and having to throw up again. I feel like that is intentionally a mirror of the first episode.
So about 10 years ago, I gave my parents 6 CDs that were of Frank Muller reading The Gunslinger. And if you've read The Gunslinger or the Dark Tower series, which both Tom and I have read, and I assume you enjoyed it as much as I did, The Gunslinger is a peculiar book in that it goes into flashbacks and then flashbacks within flashbacks and remembrances within those flashbacks. It jumps around a lot. It gets very nested. When I gave those discs to my parents, they loaded the 6 discs in their 6-disc changer in their car. Unfortunately, they loaded them backwards.
Oops.
So they listened to all of The Gunslinger backwards.
Oh,
they
weird.
began with the ending and then went to the 5th disc and then the 4th disc and the 3rd disc. And then the last disc they heard began with the man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. And they ended up so confused, but strangely enchanted that they went back and re-listened to everything in the right order. And they went on to read all of the peripheral Stephen King stories. They did all of the audiobooks. They did the entire Dark Tower series. And I feel like in some small way, while I rolled my eyes at my parents before, I have now become them with Silicon Valley in that I watched them in reverse order and still enjoyed it and had a great time.
And I'm not kidding around, Brian. I am someone who doesn't believe being spoiled is the end of the world for a story. And I definitely believe that you can be spoiled on elements of a story and still thoroughly enjoy it. And I think those are examples of why that's true. I don't believe that you should spoil yourself and that that it somehow improves the experience. I think that it's just not nearly as devastating as people seem to think.
Here's my thing about spoilers is it's not, you're right, it's not the end of the world. However, I find it highly distracting. When I worked at the movie theater at Cinemark when I was in high school, my manager told me about the time that he went to go see Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. He is the biggest Star Trek fan I've ever encountered. And as a teenager, he went in 1982 to the movie theater, got his popcorn, got his soda, getting ready to walk into the theater, and ran into an old girlfriend who's like, "What are you seeing?" I'm like, "I'm going to go see Star Trek II." And she goes, "Oh, I cried when Spock died." And he spent the rest of the movie, every single scene, wondering, is this it? Is this when he dies? No, maybe this is it. Maybe this is when he died. I'm not going to say it ruins the movie, but I will say it highly distracts and it highly affects the movie. To me, the moment that I truly fall in love with movies is when I get past anything I know from the previews and all of a sudden I realize, like a wave of joy, that I'm now in uncharted territory, that I honestly have no idea what's going to happen next, and there's magic in that mystery, and I personally value that. I'm not going to say that that's how everyone should enjoy it, but that certainly is how I do.
And if you listen to what I said, everything you say fits in with what I said, which is that spoiling of a story does not have to ruin it in most cases. There are going to be situations where the story hinges on a surprise, and ruining that surprise will significantly decrease the effect of that story. The Sixth Sense, The Crying Game, arguably The Wrath of Khan is that same kind of thing. And I acknowledge that. But just what we've moved into is not like, oh, you told me the central element, the central twist. What we've moved into is you've told me something about the story at all. and therefore it is now ruined.
You clearly see this as a negative thing where the needle has swung too far. To me, this never existed before. This is a wonderful new respect for the story that is permeating mass culture. Now, granted,
it is swung to a politically correct. We can't have discussions and critiques about things anymore because someone may not have seen or read it. And if that were true for literature, we wouldn't have literary criticism. We wouldn't be able to talk about books because nobody would have, nobody's always read the same books. I definitely think it's swung too far.
Political correctness is the pendulum swinging too far, but it is swinging too far in the service of something wonderful, which is cultural sensitivity.
No, it's not.
Spoiler fever.
Too far in people being outraged on the internet. It's totally trolly behavior. I don't think there was a problem with spoilers before that needed to be corrected.
I think that spoiler fever is the pendulum swinging too far. The accusation of you're spoiling this for me or whatever, that is too far. And it is cartoonish and it is stupid and is just as bad as political correctness. However, it is a symptom of something wonderful because there was no, when did anyone talk about spoilers 20, 30 years ago? The moment something happened, everyone talked about it. And if you didn't see it, then sorry, you didn't get to experience because you suddenly heard about it the next day. JR got shot or whatever. I think it's wonderful that we're entering an age where people respect the magic of storytelling to a level where even to a fault, they overcompensate and accuse other people of doing spoiler. I mean, I'm down with that. I think you and I really have a fundamental disagreement about this, which is kind of wonderful to me.
I disagree that there was ever a problem. I don't think there was a lack of respect for the story. I don't think anything needed to be fixed.
All right.
Yeah. But I do think it's wonderful to disagree.
Duly noted, sir. All right, what else do you want to talk about?
We've got to go to The Leftovers, man. You watched it and I had missed it, so I went back and I watched episode 1. There is a second episode of The Leftovers out there that Brian and I haven't watched yet, but based on the pilot, I feel weirdly like this isn't an HBO show.
No, it feels very broadcast. It feels, I would say, and I mean this charitably, it feels like Lost. Good. Want to see more? You hear that uptick at the end?
Yes.
But not like Game of Thrones, and not even in the same league. However, I think, Tom, if you will take my hand, I will promise to continue to watch The Leftovers so long as we both find it entertaining. So say we all?
Well, here. Do you get it? Yeah.
We're shaking.
There we go.
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait. Here, keep doing it. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. We're shaking hands now.
Right there. We're shaking hands, audio listeners. All right. Yes, I will watch episode 2 this week for sure, and try to catch episode 3 once it airs as well. Before next week. But yeah, very broadcast like, and I think that's the Damon Lindelof aspect, because it pulls its punches at a couple of points that an HBO show normally would not, as far as like graphicness or language. But it does have enough mysteries that I'm interested in to keep going. Do you have that Lost fear? And for me, it's not Lost, it's more Prometheus, that Damon Lindelof is sucking me in with good setup, but won't be able to deliver a final punch?
Well, first of all, remember that Damon Lindelof had nothing to do with the setup on Lost. He only was brought in the latter half to do the actual conclusion. And
he was there from the beginning of the show, though. I mean, let's not confuse that. He was on the entire series.
Wait, is that right? I thought he came in late on that.
No,
maybe I'm wrong.
J.J. Abrams started the story, I think, is what you're thinking of, and that's correct. J.J. Abrams set up all the mysteries and said, "Here's your story, go with it." But Damon Lindelof was on from season 1.
Okay, all right. Then I must have over evaluated that statement. So I apologize for being wrong. I did not hate Lost's ending as much as other people. I thought it was better than the Battlestar Galactica ending.
Yes.
And I thought that the ride was well worth the experience on loss, and you had to tie it up somehow, and that's fine. I think people get overly butthurt about, well, they said they had a plan the whole time. Well, guess what? So did the Cylons. Clearly, none of them did. Nobody has a plan. We're all just feeling crap out. In the meantime, it was great storytelling, and I'm okay with it. However, I hated Prometheus with every fiber in my being. I absolutely abhor that movie. It is an awful, awful waste of time and everything. So understand, like, I can go both ways on Lindelof. I'm inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt because on the Leftovers, it is a fascinating idea. The idea of a 9/11 on an almost galactic level where there's not a single person on the entire planet who's not directly and deeply affected. That opening scene with the vanishing of the baby, you know, and maybe it's got a shortcut to my soul because we have a kid, but that was very difficult to watch and really set the tone exactly right for all this. And the mystery of those folks who smoke religiously, like literally religiously, I'm in. I want to know more, and I want to know. I want to know what's up with the bucks running around and the dogs going crazy. I want to know what's up with the dude that made his wife leave him for a cult. I want to know. I think they did a good job, which to me is truly the most terrifying idea of having a teenage daughter. And it turns out, hopefully, I'll eventually have 3 of them. You know, it's or a rebellious teenage daughter at any point. I don't know. I'm maybe more in than you are. But then again, keep in mind, I don't usually do this. Usually when I watch shows, I give it my full attention. This one I turned on and put in the corner while I piddled with other stuff. And I think that's part of why it got an upgrade in my perceived quality on it.
I agree that opening scene was Lindelof at his best, right? He's taking someone's book, someone's idea. And that's where my hope is like, this already has a direction, right? There's a book out there that this is based on. He's taking that and he is figuring out how to punch you in the gut. And that opening scene, man, you are 100% right. Like that sums everything up. You don't need to know anything else about the 14th after you watch that scene, because you know what everybody on Earth felt just with that one woman's story with her child. Then on the other end, I see a Lindelof that scares me with the guy who dreams about bucks and then the dogs show up. And I'm like, that's the kind of stuff that reeks of Prometheus to me. Like, we've got a spiritual thing that really won't make sense and is integrated into the plot in a way that's just going to undermine it. And I worry about that side of it.
I mean, let's give him enough rope to hang himself on. You know, it's like, let's give him the chance and see what we actually get.
And I haven't read the book. Maybe that's in the book and it's perfectly it's perfectly essential to the story. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm down to keep on going, and we both reserve the right to say screw this show, I'm out, which we've certainly done before. But for now, I'm definitely in.
All right, on to The Shield, Season 2, Episode 7, Barnstormers. Mackie and Emma try to help a woman in an abusive relationship. So we see Mackie, and Emma is the woman from the women's shelter that was in a previous episode, starting to strike up some sparks here. Mackie and the strike team also begin to make plans for the money train takedown, even though the green light still has them on their toes. So it shows their sort of recklessness of like, they're being targeted and they're like, should we really be worrying about the money train when we're targeted? And they have an internal debate about that. Aceveda tells Wagenbach that he is embarrassed, that he embarrassed the department with the Bob and Marcy case. That's the one where Marcy's like, sorry, daddy. And he actually has to interview Marcy, and that Wims is now lead on all their cases. So he is forced to take any action necessary to prove himself in a new homicide. And Sofer finally makes a stand against Yasira. This is probably the most interesting part of this is the Mackie story, as is usual with the Shield. I'm getting it is really the Mackie Aceveda story, and you don't get as much about Aceveda in this episode. It's all about Mackie, and of course, you have something pretty bad happen to Gardaki at the end, because he goes and shows up where Mackie was supposed to be, and Armadillo is waiting for him.
Yeah, dude. First of all, you said the magic words, which are money train. It probably is not going to surprise you that this is a multi-episode arc. Maybe one of my favorite arcs in the entire series. I'm really excited to watch you watch it. I'm really excited to hear what you think about it. And now I think you're far enough that you're caught up with my second lap. So maybe I'll join you along for the ride.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The next episode is Scar Tissue, episode 8. I'm looking forward to that.
Right on, man.
We left Gardaki with a burned face in the last episode.
Oh, wait, so that just happened.
Yeah, it happens at the very end of Barnstormers.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Yeah. Especially
His face
for
is messed up. He's got burner face now.
Yeah, waffle face, man. Not good.
Good old waffles.
I don't want waffles now. All right. Well, that is it for Spoilerin Time. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Cordkillers.com to find more and to enjoy all of our other episodes of the regular Cordkillers.
Yeah. So long, jerks. I mean, I love you, bosses.
Bye. Write us.